Captain Sarah Martinez stood at the viewing window of the human embassy station, watching the blue-green swirl of the planet Galactic Prime below. She had been stationed here for 3 years, serving as one of humanity's representatives to the Galactic Council. It was an honor that still felt surreal to her. 50 years ago, humans had been alone in the universe. They had just started reaching out to nearby star systems when the first alien ship appeared in Earth's orbit. The Zephyrians had come in peace, followed by dozens of other species who welcomed humanity into what they called the Great Community of Stars. Sarah remembered the stories her grandmother told her about those early days, how Earth's leaders had been terrified and amazed at the same time, how the aliens had shared technology that solved climate change and hunger overnight, how humans had gone from a single planet to having colonies on hundreds of worlds in just a few decades. The Galactic Council had been impressed with humanity from the start. Humans learned fast, adapted quickly, and had a strange talent for bringing different species together. When the lizard-like Keth fought with the gas-breathing Vorns over mining rights, human diplomats found solutions. When ancient enemies needed to work together, humans showed them how. Sarah's personal communicator buzzed. The message was from her friend Ambassador Kethver, a tall, blue-skinned Zephyrian who had become one of humanity's strongest supporters on the council. Emergency session called. Something big is happening. The Void Seekers have returned. Sarah felt her blood turn cold. Every species in the galaxy knew about the Void Seekers, though most had never seen one. They were older than any other known race, and they had vanished into the dark spaces between galaxies thousands of years ago. The story said they possessed technology that could reshape matter itself, bend space and time, and destroy entire star systems with a thought. Sarah quickly made her way to the council chambers, a massive dome that could hold representatives from over 800 different species. The air was thick with tension and the mixed atmosphere that allowed so many different life forms to breathe. She found her assigned seat among the human delegation and looked around at faces that had become familiar over the years. The lights dimmed, and the council leader, an ancient being that looked like a floating crystal formation, began to speak. Its voice echoed through translation devices in hundreds of languages. Fellow beings of the galactic community, we face a crisis unlike any in recorded history. The Void Seekers have returned to our galaxy. Their ships have been detected at the edge of the Outer Rim, and they have made contact with our scout vessels. Holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing dark, twisted ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Even through the hologram, Sarah could feel something wrong about those vessels, as if they existed in a way that hurt to look at. They have made their demands clear, the council leader continued. They want tribute, they want technology, they want resources, and they want proof that we understand our place in the cosmic order. Sarah noticed that many of the alien representatives were looking nervous. Some species that she had never seen show fear were actually trembling. What kind of proof? Called out Ambassador Thex from the warrior species known as the Colliery, the council. Leader's crystal form seemed to dim slightly. They want us to choose a species to sacrifice, to show them that we value the survival of the many over the few. They have given us 7 days to decide. The chamber erupted in shocked voices, angry shouts, and what sounded like prayers in various alien languages. Sarah felt sick to her stomach. This was barbaric. This was everything the Galactic Council stood against. Ambassador Kethver stood up, his blue skin darker than usual with anger. This is unacceptable. We are a civilization built on cooperation and mutual respect. We do not sacrifice our own. Many other voices joined his in protest, but Sarah noticed that some sections of the chamber remained quiet. Some of the older, more powerful species were exchanging glances that made her uncomfortable. The council leader raised what might have been a hand, calling for silence. This matter is too important for immediate decision. We will recess for private deliberations. All species representatives will meet with their home governments. We reconvene in 6 days. As the chamber began to empty, Sarah caught up with Kethver in the corridor. His usually calm demeanor was completely shattered. This is madness, Sarah. he said quietly. I have seen the Void Seekers' technology in the historical records. If they wanted to destroy us all, they could do it without breaking their stride. This demand for sacrifice. It is not about resources or tribute, it is about power. They want to see if they can make us betray our own principles. Sarah nodded grimly. What do you think will happen? Kethver's large darts met hers. I think some of the council members are already making calculations, figuring out which species they can afford to lose. Over the next 5 days, Sarah watched the political situation deteriorate rapidly. Species that had been allies for centuries began looking at each other with suspicion. The weaker civilizations started forming desperate alliances, while the stronger ones held closed meetings that excluded their smaller neighbors. Humanity's own delegation was in constant communication with Earth and the colony worlds. The message coming back was clear. Humans would not participate in choosing a species for sacrifice, no matter what the consequences, but Sarah began to notice something troubling. In conversations with other ambassadors, she kept hearing the same phrases. Humanity is still so young. They have not proven themselves over millennia like the rest of us. They reproduce so quickly they would recover from losses faster than others. On the morning of the final day, Kethver met Sarah for what had become their regular breakfast in the embassy's observation deck. His expression was darker than she had ever seen it. The vote has already been decided, he said without any greeting. I was not supposed to know, but I have friends in many delegations. They met in secret last night. Sarah set down her coffee cup with shaking hands. Who? Humanity? The word hit her like a physical blow. She stared at Kethver, hoping she had misunderstood, but his expression told her everything. 847 species voted to offer humanity to the Void Seekers. I was the only vote against it. His voice was barely a whisper. They convinced themselves that humans are the logical choice. Young species spread thin across many worlds, no ancient alliances to complicate things. They think you will be easy to round up and deliver. Sarah stood up abruptly, her chair falling backward. We trusted them. We helped them. We solved their problems and shared our discoveries and built bridges between enemies, and they ... She could not finish the sentence. They do not understand what they have just done, Kethver said sadly. They think humans are like them. They think you will accept this decision because it comes from authority. They think you will go quietly because resistance seems hopeless. They are wrong, Sarah said, and something in her voice made Kethver look up sharply. Sarah, what are you thinking? She was already moving toward the communication console. I am thinking that 50 years ago, humans were alone in a hostile universe and we survived. I'm thinking that we have learned everything we could about every species in this galaxy. I'm thinking that they just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. As Sarah began sending coded messages to every human world, station and ship in the galaxy, Kethver watched her with growing amazement and horror. He was beginning to understand that the Galactic Council had not chosen to sacrifice a young, weak species. They had chosen to make an enemy of the most adaptable, innovative, and stubborn species the galaxy had ever known, and they had given that enemy advance warning. The official announcement came exactly 12 hours after the secret vote. Captain Sarah Martinez stood in the embassy's main hall with the rest of the human delegation, watching as Council Leader Vexstar delivered what they called the necessary sacrifice for galactic peace. The crystal being's voice echoed through every translation device in the galaxy as it spoke to trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. By unanimous decision of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby expelled from civilized space. All human colonies, ships, and installations must surrender their advanced technology and submit to relocation outside the galactic community. You have 48 hours to comply. Sarah watched the faces of her fellow humans in the room. She expected to see panic, fear, maybe even tears. Instead, she saw something that made her proud and terrified at the same time. Every single human face showed the same expression. Cold. Calculating anger, Ambassador Chunwei, the head of the human delegation, stepped forward. He was a small, quiet man who had spent 30 years in diplomatic service. Sarah had never heard him raise his voice or show any emotion stronger than mild concern. "Council Leader Vexstar," Chun said in a voice that somehow carried to every corner of the massive chamber. "We acknowledge your decision. Humanity will comply with your demands." Sarah blinked in shock. Around the chamber, she could see alien representatives looking relieved. Some even seemed pleased that the humans were accepting their fate so easily, but then Chun continued speaking and Sarah understood. "We will leave your space immediately. We will take nothing that belongs to you. We ask only that you remember this moment because we certainly will." The way he said those last words made several alien ambassadors shift uncomfortably in their seats. There was something in Chun's tone that suggested promises rather than threats. Within 6 hours, something unprecedented began happening across the galaxy. Every human settlement, every human ship, every human research station went completely silent, not abandoned, not destroyed. Just ... quiet. Commander Alex Reeves was monitoring the situation from the Council's central military headquarters when the reports started coming in. As a human officer serving in the Galactic Fleet, he was supposed to surrender himself for relocation, but somehow no one had come to arrest him yet. The first report came from the Outer Rim colonies. "All human settlements have ceased communications," the Calari officer announced. "No response to hail attempts. No distress signals, no ship movements detected." "Check their power signatures," ordered Admiral Thrak, a massive hegemony leader who had voted enthusiastically for humanity's expulsion. "They might be trying to hide." The scan results came back minutes later. "No power signatures detected, sir. The colonies appear to be completely dead." Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human cargo ships that had been in mid-flight simply vanished from sensors. Human diplomatic stations that had been bustling with activity 12 hours ago now showed no signs of life. Human research facilities that had been sharing scientific discoveries with the galaxy went dark. Daleks quietly accessed the military database and pulled up the locations of every known human installation. What he saw made his breath catch. There had been far more human settlements than anyone realized. The official records showed 300 human colonies. The sensor sweeps were detecting over 2,000 locations where human activity had suddenly stopped. Where were they all hiding? Admiral Thrak muttered, staring at the same display. Alex had a suspicion, but he kept it to himself. For the past 20 years, humans had been requesting permission to establish research colonies in remote locations. Empty star systems, asteroid fields, rogue planets that drifted between the stars. The Council had always approved these requests because the locations seemed worthless. No one had bothered to check what kind of research was actually being done there. Now, Alex was beginning to understand. Those remote colonies had not been research stations. They had been something else entirely. 3 days after the deadline, Council search teams were dispatched to investigate the human settlements. What they found confused and disturbed them. Captain Zektai of the Zephyrian Fleet led the investigation of New Geneva, one of humanity's largest agricultural colonies. His ship had detected no life signs from orbit, but the colony infrastructure appeared intact. "This is impossible," his science officer reported as they explored the empty streets. "The buildings are undamaged, the machinery is still running, the crops are still growing. But there are no humans anywhere." They found houses with meals still sitting on tables. Vehicles parked neatly in designated areas. Even personal belongings left in bedrooms as if the residents had simply stepped out for a moment. "Sir," called one of his security team from the colony's main communication center, "you need to see this." The communication log showed the last message sent from New Geneva. It had been transmitted exactly 7 hours and 58 minutes after the Council's announcement. 2 minutes before the deadline. The message was simple: relocation complete. "Thank you for the advance warning." Similar scenes played out across hundreds of human worlds. Empty colonies with no signs of struggle or panic, just absence. As if millions of humans had simply decided to exist somewhere else, the investigation teams found other puzzling details. Equipment that should have been there was missing. Not stolen or destroyed, just gone. Entire manufacturing facilities had been stripped of every useful component. Massive mining operations showed signs of having extracted and removed far more resources than the official reports had indicated. Dr. Yilmar, a Zephyrian xenobiologist who had worked closely with human scientists, was part of the team investigating the research colonies. What she found in the Outer Rim territories made her file an urgent report with the Council. The human research installations were not what they appeared to be, she wrote. Based on the infrastructure remains, these were massive industrial complexes. The power generation capabilities alone suggest they were producing technology on a scale we never imagined. The humans were not just living in our galaxy, they were building something. Her report included detailed scans of the abandoned facilities, underground factories that could have produced enough ships to outfit a fleet, research laboratories that showed signs of advanced weapons development, mining operations that had extracted rare metals in quantities that defied explanation. Most disturbing of all were the computer terminals they found in some facilities. The data had been wiped, but traces remained. Traces that showed the humans had been studying every species in the galaxy. Their weaknesses, their military tactics, their technological capabilities. Files labeled with names like counter-Kalari strategies and hegemony weakness analysis. Ambassador Kethver sat in his private quarters, reading Dr. Yilmar's report with growing dread. He had warned the Council that they did not understand human nature, but even he had not imagined this. The humans had been preparing for betrayal. For 50 years, while they served as diplomats and peacekeepers and helpful neighbors, they had been quietly building the infrastructure for war. Those remote research colonies had been military installations. The humans had been studying their allies, learning their secrets, and preparing for the day when the galaxy might turn against them. Kethver accessed the Galactic Communication Network and tried to send a message to any human receiver. He wanted to apologize, to explain that not all species had supported the Council's decision, but his messages disappeared into silence. Either the humans were not listening or they were choosing not to respond. On the 4th day after the deadline, the Void Seekers sent their own message to the Council. It was brief and to the point. Where is our tribute? Council leader Vexstar had to admit that they did not know. Humanity had vanished, taking their technology and resources with them. The Void Seekers were not pleased. You promised us a species, their representative said through communications that hurt to hear. We do not care about your politics or your procedures. Deliver what you promised, or face the consequences. Admiral Thrak volunteered to lead a massive search operation. The humans cannot have gone far, he declared. We will find them and drag them back to fulfill their obligation. But the searches found nothing. Human ships that had been tracked, leaving civilized space, had simply vanished beyond the outer territories. Sensor sweeps of nearby star systems detected no human activity. It was as if millions of people and thousands of ships had been swallowed by the darkness between the stars. Months passed. The Void Seekers grew increasingly impatient, but eventually seemed to lose interest in the tribute demand. They withdrew to their dark space domains, apparently satisfied that the galaxy understood their power. The Council declared the situation resolved. They told themselves that humanity had fled to some distant corner of the universe and would probably die out within a few generations without galactic support. The crisis was over, but Ambassador Kethver could not shake the feeling that they had all made a terrible mistake. Somewhere in the darkness beyond civilized space, millions of humans were doing what humans did best: adapting, building, and preparing for whatever came next, and they had 3 years of silence to work with. 3 years had passed since humanity disappeared from the galaxy. The Galactic Council had settled into what they called the Great Peace. Trade routes flourished without human interference. Diplomatic disputes were handled by the older, more experienced species. The Council members congratulated themselves on making the hard choice that had saved Galactic Civilization Admiral Thrak of the Hegemony was reviewing patrol reports in his flagship when the first incident occurred. His species prided themselves on being the galaxy's strongest military force. For 2,000 years, the Hegemony had kept order through superior firepower and unbreakable discipline. "Sir, we have lost contact with Battle Group 7, his communications officer reported. Thrak looked up from his datapad. Battle Group 7 consisted of 12 heavy cruisers patrolling the outer edges of Hegemony space. Equipment malfunction? Unknown, sir. Their last transmission was a routine status report 6 hours ago. All attempts to re-establish contact have failed." Within 12 hours, a search and rescue fleet found Battle Group 7 drifting in the void. The ships were intact, their crews alive and unharmed, but something was very wrong. Captain Veltar led the boarding party onto the flagship. What he found made no sense. Every piece of advanced technology had been removed from the ship, not destroyed or damaged, just gone. The weapon systems, the navigation computers, the communication arrays, even the personal devices carried by the crew. "The humans did this," whispered one of the bridge officers when they questioned him. His eyes were wide with shock. "They came out of nowhere, ships that our sensors could not detect. They boarded us without triggering any alarms." "Impossible," Veltar replied. "Humans have been gone for 3 years, and their technology was never that advanced." The officer shook his head frantically. These were not the humans we knew. Their ships were like shadows. Their weapons made our shields useless. They took everything they wanted and left us floating, helpless. Carved into the hull of each ship was a simple message in perfect Hegemony script: "Payment due." Admiral Thrak studied the reports with growing unease. The attacking ships had used technology unlike anything in the Council's databases. They had moved through space without creating sensor signatures. They had penetrated military shields that had never been breached before, and they had done it all without killing a single Hegemony soldier. "This was a message," he told his staff officers. "They wanted us to know they could have destroyed us but chose not to." The incidents continued. Across Hegemony space, supply convoys disappeared overnight, only to be found days later stripped of their cargo. Military bases reported power failures that left them defenseless for hours before mysteriously resolving. Patrol ships returned to port with their crews, confused and their computers wiped clean. Each attack followed the same pattern. No casualties, no destruction, just the systematic removal of anything useful, and always the same message: "Payment due." The news reached the Galactic Council within weeks, but many species dismissed it as Hegemony propaganda. The warrior race was probably trying to increase their military budget by inventing threats. That changed when the attacks spread to other council members. Ambassador Kethfer was working late in his office when the emergency alert came through. 3 Zephyrian research stations had gone dark simultaneously. Unlike the Hegemony incidents, this attack was different. When rescue teams arrived, they found the stations completely empty. Not just the technology this time. The people were gone too. Dr. Yilmar was among the missing scientists. Her final transmission had been cut off mid-sentence while she was describing an unusual sensor reading. The research stations showed no signs of struggle. Personal belongings were left behind, but every person had vanished. Days later, the missing Zephyrians were found on an uninhabited moon in a neighboring system. They were alive, unharmed, and completely bewildered. None of them remembered how they had gotten there. "The humans came to our station," Dr. Yilmar told the investigators. "But they were different. Their technology was beyond anything we had seen. They told us we were being relocated for our own safety." "What did they mean by that?" Kethfer asked. "They said the Zephyrian government had voted to sacrifice humanity, so humanity was returning the favor. They were showing us what it felt like to be moved without our consent." The message carved into the research station walls was longer this time. "You voted to relocate us. Now you understand how it feels. This is only the beginning." Panic began to spread through the council chambers. Species that had supported humanity's expulsion started demanding military protection. The Kalari Empire mobilized their entire fleet. The Crystalline Confederacy activated ancient defense systems that had not been used in centuries. None of it helped. The attacks came from everywhere and nowhere. Human ships appeared inside heavily defended systems without triggering any sensors. They struck with surgical precision, taking what they wanted and vanishing before any response could be organized. The Kaleri lost their primary shipyard when human forces somehow infiltrated the facility and dismantled the entire construction infrastructure overnight. The workers were left unharmed, but the massive facility that had built warships for 3 centuries was reduced to empty framework. The Vorlon Trade Federation watched helplessly as their cargo fleets were systematically stripped of their most valuable goods. The humans did not steal randomly. They took specific items, rare metals, advanced computer cores, experimental weapons, always things that could be used to build more ships or better technology. Commander Alex Reeves had remained in his position with the Council military throughout the 3 years of human absence. Most aliens had forgotten he was there, treating him like furniture in the command center. This gave him a perfect view of how the Council was falling apart. Their attack patterns make no sense, Admiral Thrak complained during a strategy meeting. They hit targets that seem completely random. A mining station here, a research facility there, a trade convoy somewhere else. Alex studied the tactical displays and saw something the alien commanders were missing. The targets were not random at all. Every attack hit facilities that were involved in the production or research of advanced military technology. The humans were systematically weakening the Council's ability to fight back. Even more disturbing was how much the humans seemed to know. They hit supply convoys that were carrying classified cargo. They attacked research stations that were developing secret weapons. They knew exactly where to find the Council's most valuable assets. They are using our own intelligence against U.S., Alex realized. During their 50 years as Council members, humans had been given access to vast amounts of classified information. Trade routes, military installations, technological capabilities. Information they were now using to wage war more effectively than any Council species could have imagined. The psychological impact was worse than the physical damage. Council species that had dominated the galaxy for millennia were discovering they were helpless against an enemy they had dismissed as young and weak. Fleets that had never lost a battle found themselves outmaneuvered by ships they could not detect. Governments that had ruled for thousands of years watched their authority crumble as they proved unable to protect their own people. Dr. Zilketh, a prominent hegemony strategist, published a report that sent shockwaves through the Council. Her analysis of the human attacks revealed a terrifying truth. The humans are not trying to conquer us, she wrote. They are teaching us. Every attack demonstrates our vulnerabilities. Every raid shows us how dependent we have become on technology and systems we do not fully understand. They are proving that our civilization is built on foundations of sand. The report included detailed analysis of human tactics. Ships that could phase through solid matter using technology that violated known physics. Weapons that turned in enemies. Owned defenses against them. Computer viruses that could rewrite military software faster than any countermeasure could be deployed. Where did they get this technology? The report asked. The humans we knew 50 years ago could not have built these weapons. Something happened during their 3 years of exile. Something that transformed them from a young species into something we do not recognize. Ambassador Kethver sat in his quarters reading Dr. Zilketh's report for the 3rd time. He remembered his last conversation with Sarah Martinez, how she had promised that the Council would face consequences for their betrayal. At the time, he had thought she meant political resistance or economic retaliation. He had never imagined anything like this. The humans had spent 3 years in the darkness between stars, and they had emerged as something new. Something that could strike at the heart of galactic civilization without warning and vanish like ghosts. Kethver opened his communication terminal and tried once again to send a message to any human receiver. He wanted to negotiate, to find some way to end the attacks before they destroyed everything the Council had built, but his messages still disappeared into silence. The humans were not interested in talking, they were interested in teaching the galaxy a lesson about the price of betrayal, and the lesson was just beginning. The first time anyone saw the true size of the human fleet was during the Battle of Crimson Nebula. Admiral Thrak had assembled the largest military force in hegemony history to hunt down the ghost ships that had been terrorizing Council space for months. 300 heavy cruisers, 50 dreadnoughts, and support vessels that numbered in the thousands. The plan was simple. The humans had been using the nebula as a hiding place, striking from its dense gas clouds before vanishing. Again, Thrak would surround the entire nebula and flush them out like prey animals. "Today we end this nonsense," Thrak announced to his fleet commanders. "These humans may have new tricks, but they cannot fight the combined might of civilized species." The hegemony fleet moved into position around the nebula in perfect formation. Their sensors showed no human ships inside the gas clouds, but Thrak knew they were there. The attacks had been coming from this region for weeks. "Begin the sweep," he ordered. "Drive them into the open where we can destroy them properly." The first wave of cruisers entered the nebula's outer edge. For 10 minutes, everything seemed normal. Then the sensors started picking up movement in the gas clouds ahead. "Contact," reported the sensor officer. "Multiple ships emerging from the nebula core." The main display showed what looked like a small human fleet. Maybe 30 ships? Sleek and dark, moving in formation toward the hegemony forces. Thrak smiled grimly. Finally, a real battle instead of hit-and-run attacks. "All ships, engage the enemy. Show them what happens when they face real warriors." The hegemony fleet opened fire with enough firepower to destroy a planet. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between the two forces. But something impossible happened. The human ships did not dodge or take cover. They flew straight through the weapon fire as if it was not there. "Shields are not stopping our attacks," the weapons officer reported in confusion. "Our shots are passing right through their ships." Before Thrak could respond, the human ships opened fire. But they were not using energy weapons or missiles. Instead, they fired what looked like metal spears that moved faster than anything in the Council's arsenal. The first spear hit the dreadnought destroyer of worlds and passed completely through its armor like it was made of paper. The ship's power systems failed instantly. The second spear disabled another dreadnought. Within minutes, the entire front line of the hegemony fleet was drifting helpless. "How are they doing this?" Thrak demanded. "Unknown, sir. Our weapons cannot touch them, but their weapons cut through our defenses like they do not exist." Then the real shock came. More human ships began emerging from the nebula, not 30 ships. Hundreds of them, then thousands. The gas clouds that had seemed empty were hiding a fleet larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Alex Reeves watched the battle from the Council Command Center, his heart racing as he saw the true scope of what humanity had built during their exile. The official reports had estimated that humans might have a few dozen ships hidden somewhere in deep space. The reality was a fleet that dwarfed every military force in the galaxy combined. The human ships moved like a living thing, flowing around the hegemony fleet and striking with perfect coordination. They used weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Some ships phased in and out of normal space. Others fired projectiles that changed direction in mid-flight to hit targets that thought they were safe. Most terrifying of all was how the human ships communicated. There were no radio transmissions, no tactical signals that Council forces could intercept. The entire fleet moved as if controlled by a single mind. "Sir," the communication officer called out to Admiral Thrak, "we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet." The main screen flickered and showed a familiar face. Admiral Chen Wei, the former human representative to the Council military. But he looked different. Older, harder, with eyes that had seen things that changed a person. "Admiral Thrak," Chun said in a voice that carried no emotion, "you have led your people into a trap. Your fleet is disabled but not destroyed. Your crews are alive but helpless. This is your only warning." "Warning?" Thrak snarled. "You dare Threaten the hegemony. Chung's expression did not change. I am not threatening anyone. I am explaining reality. For 3 years you have enjoyed peace while we prepared for war. Now you will learn what war truly means. The transmission ended, and the human fleet began to withdraw. But they left behind something that made every council military officer watching feel sick. Floating in space around each disabled hegemony ship was a small device that had not been there before. What are those? Thrak asked his science officer. The analysis came back within minutes. They appear to be some kind of monitoring system, sir. The humans have placed tracking devices on every ship in our fleet. The implications were clear. The humans could now track the movement of every hegemony vessel. They would know where each ship went, what it carried, and when it would be most vulnerable to attack. News of the battle spread through council space like wildfire. The species that had dismissed human capabilities suddenly realized they were facing an enemy beyond their understanding. Emergency sessions were called. Military leaders demanded explanations that no one could provide. Dr. Zilketh released another report that painted an even more disturbing picture of human capabilities. Her analysis of the Battle of Crimson Nebula revealed technologies that should not have been possible. The human ships demonstrated selective phasing technology, she wrote. They could choose which matter to interact with and which to ignore. This allowed them to pass through weapon fire while their own attacks remained fully solid. Such technology requires understanding of physics that we do not possess. The report also analyzed the human weapon systems. Their projectile weapons appear to use programmable matter. The projectiles can change their properties during flight, becoming harder or softer, heavier or lighter, depending on what they need to penetrate. This explains how they cut through our best armor like it was nothing. Even more disturbing was the revelation about human ship construction. Based on sensor readings, their vessels are built using materials we cannot identify. The ships register on our instruments but do not reflect energy the way normal matter should. It is as if they exist partially outside our reality. Ambassador Kethver read the report in his quarters and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. The humans had not just advanced their technology during their exile, they had transcended it. They were using science that made council knowledge look primitive. He tried once again to send a message to any human receiver, this time offering complete surrender if they would just agree to talk. The message disappeared into the void like all the others. The attacks escalated after the Battle of Crimson Nebula. Human forces began hitting multiple targets simultaneously across dozens of star systems. They struck with a coordination that suggested they had mapped every important facility in council space. The Kaleri Empire watched their primary weapons research facility disappear overnight. Not destroyed, but literally removed from existence. The building was there one day and gone the next, leaving only empty ground where it had stood. The Crystalline Confederacy found their quantum communication network systematically dismantled. The humans did not break the network, they rewired it. Suddenly, every crystalline military transmission was being broadcast to human receivers while council forces received only static. The Vorlon Trade Federation discovered that their entire economic database had been copied and analyzed. The humans knew every trade route, every cargo manifest, every financial transaction. They used this knowledge to disrupt the galactic economy with surgical precision, but the most shocking attack came against the council chambers themselves. Admiral Chen Wei appeared on every communication screen in the galaxy at the same time, somehow overriding every security system that was supposed to prevent such transmissions. People of the galaxy, Chun said, looking directly into the cameras with those hard, changed eyes. 3 years ago, your leaders chose to sacrifice humanity to save themselves. They believed we were weak. They believed we would accept our fate. Quietly, they were wrong. The transmission showed images of human colonies in the void between stars. Not the primitive settlements the Council expected, but massive cities built inside asteroids and rogue planets. Industrial complexes that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, shipyards that could build fleets in weeks instead of years. We did not flee from your galaxy, Chun continued. We moved our operations to where you could not interfere with our work. We studied your species, your weaknesses, your technologies. We prepared for the day when you would face the consequences of your betrayal. The images changed to show human scientists working with technologies that defied understanding. Machines that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Computers that processed information faster than the speed of light. Weapons that could strike targets in different dimensions. You thought we were young and inexperienced, Chun said. You forgot that being young means we have not yet learned that some things are impossible? While you spent millennia perfecting what you already knew, we spent 3 years discovering what you never imagined. The transmission ended with a simple message that appeared on every. The final phase of the war began when human forces appeared in orbit around every council homeworld simultaneously. Not attacking, just waiting. Massive fleets that blocked out the stars and cast shadows across entire continents, Ambassador Kethver, stood on the observation deck of the Zephyrian capital, looking up at the human ships floating motionless in the sky above his world. Each vessel was the size of a city, their dark hulls reflecting no light. They had been there for 3 days, doing nothing but existing as a reminder of how helpless the galaxy had become. The psychological effect was devastating. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds went to sleep each night knowing that humanity could end their civilization whenever they chose. The humans did not need to fire a single shot. Their mere presence was enough to paralyze Galactic Society. Council leader Vexstar called an emergency session, but only half the member species showed up. The others were too busy dealing with panic on their homeworlds. Those who did attend looked like they had aged years in the past few weeks. We must negotiate, declared Senator Hilvan of the Calari Empire. Her proud warrior species had been reduced to hiding in underground bunkers while human ships patrolled their skies. Surely the humans can be reasoned with. They have ignored every attempt at communication, Vexstar replied, its crystal form flickering with stress patterns. We have offered them anything they want. Territory, resources, technology, even seats on the council. They do not respond. Admiral Thrax, still recovering from his humiliation at Crimson Nebula, slammed his fist on the conference table. Then we fight them with everything we have. Call up every reserve fleet, activate every ancient weapon, alliance with every species in the galaxy. With what? Asked Dr. Zilkath from her seat in the scientific advisory section. Half our fleets cannot even start their engines. The humans have infected our computer systems with viruses that we cannot remove. Our weapons target our own ships. Our navigation systems lead us in circles. It was true. Over the past weeks, the technological infrastructure that held galactic civilization together had begun failing in ways that seemed almost alive. Military computers would work perfectly until the moment they were needed in battle, then shut down completely. Communication networks would carry messages normally until someone tried to coordinate resistance against humanity. Then every transmission would be scrambled. Commander Alex Reeves watched the council session from his position at the back of the chamber. As the only human left in council space, he had become an object of fascination and fear. Some species wanted to arrest him as a spy, others begged him to intercede with his people. Most just stared at him like he was a bomb that might explode at any moment. Commander Reeves, Vexstar called out suddenly, you have served loyally in our military for years. Surely you can help us understand what humanity wants. Alex stood slowly, feeling every eye in the chamber focused on him. For months he had watched the council members who had voted to sacrifice his species, and now they wanted his help. What humanity wants, he said quietly, is for you to understand what you did to us. You took a species that trusted you, that helped you, that considered you friends, and you voted to feed us to monsters to save your own lives. You never even considered asking for volunteers. You just decided our lives were worth less than yours. It was a difficult decision, Senator Hilvan protested. We chose the option that would save the most lives. You chose the option that felt safest for you, Alex replied. And now you want to know what we want? We want you to experience what we experienced. The fear, the helplessness, the knowledge that people you trusted have decided you do not matter. Before anyone could respond, every screen in the chamber activated. Admiral Chen Wei appeared, looking older and more tired than in his previous transmissions. "Leaders of the Galactic Council," Chen said, "your time is over. But before we proceed to the final phase, you should understand what you have created." The screen showed images that made every being in the chamber fall silent. Human cities in the void between galaxies, vast and beautiful and completely alien to anything the Council had ever seen. Children playing in parks built inside artificial suns. Scientists working with technologies that look like magic. "You thought exile would destroy us," Chun continued. "Instead, it freed us. For the first time in 50 years, we did not have to limit ourselves to what you considered acceptable. We did not have to follow your rules about what was possible. We built a civilization that exists outside your understanding." The images changed to show human ships being constructed by machines that worked at the speed of thought. Weapons being tested that could reach across space and time. Scientists discovering principles that rewrote the laws of physics. "We learned things during our exile that you will never comprehend," Chun said. "Not because you lack intelligence, but because you lack the willingness to abandon everything you think you know. You are trapped by millions of years of tradition. We are free to become anything we choose." Council leader Vexstar found its voice. "What do you want from us? Name your terms." Chun's expression softened slightly, showing a hint of the diplomat he had once been. "We want you to build something. Better, the Council is finished. Your system of government by ancient privilege and military might has proven itself unworthy of the trust you were given. You will create something new." The screen showed plans for a new form of galactic government. Not a council of the strong ruling over the weak, but a federation where every species had a voice proportional to their population and contribution. Where decisions were made by consensus rather than force. Where no species could unilaterally sacrifice another. "You will call it the Galactic Federation," Chun said. "And you will write into its founding documents that never again will any member species be abandoned to save the others. You will learn to solve problems through cooperation rather than sacrifice. And if we refuse?" asked Admiral Thrak. Chun's expression hardened again. "Then you will discover that we have prepared for that possibility as well." The screen showed something that made every military officer in the chamber feel sick. The Void Seekers, the ancient enemies that had started this entire crisis, trapped in a cage of human technology. Their dark ships were surrounded by barriers of energy that held them motionless in the space between dimensions. "The Void Seekers returned while you were dealing with our attacks," Chun explained. "They expected to find a galaxy weakened by war, easy prey for their hunger. Instead, they found us waiting for them. We had studied their technology during our exile, learned their weaknesses, prepared countermeasures." The images showed the brief battle between human and Void Seeker forces. It had lasted less than an hour. The beings that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia had been captured and contained like animals in a zoo. "They will remain in that prison for the next 1,000 years, Chun said. "Long enough for them to understand that the galaxy is no longer defenseless. When they are released, they will find a civilization that has learned to protect itself." Senator Hilvin spoke up shakily. "You could have done this from the beginning. You could have defeated the Void Seekers 3 years ago." "Yes," Chun admitted. "But then you would have learned nothing. You would have continued to believe that sacrificing the weak to protect the strong was acceptable. You would have made the same choice again when the next crisis arose." The screens went dark for a moment, then showed one final image. Human ships beginning to withdraw from Council space, pulling back to the edges of the galaxy. "You have 30 days to draft the charter for the Galactic Federation," Chun said. "Every species in the galaxy will have input. Every voice will be heard. If you succeed in creating something worthy of the trust you will be given, humanity will consider returning to galactic society." "And if we fail?" Vexstar asked. Then you will govern yourselves as best you can, while we continue to build our civilization in the places you cannot reach. But you will never again have the option of solving your problems by sacrificing others. We will be watching." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in complete silence. Ambassador Kethver sat in his chair, feeling a mixture of relief and regret. The war was over, but the galaxy he had known was gone forever. In its place would come something new, something that humanity had forced them to create through the ultimate lesson in consequences. Commander Alex Reeves walked out of the chamber, knowing that he would soon be returning to his people. The exile was ending, but not the way anyone had expected. The Council had wanted to sacrifice humanity to save themselves. Instead, humanity had sacrificed the old galaxy to save everyone. They had taught the universe that betrayal always came with a price, but they had also shown that even the worst mistakes could lead to something better. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of the Galactic Federation was about to begin, and it would be built on the foundation of the hardest lesson ever taught, that survival meant protecting everyone, not just the strong,